So first home game of the season, 2021 season, Newcastle Falcons. I'm here at Farley House, the HQ of Bath Rugby, and I'm joined today with a very, very good old friend of mine, Steve Ojomoh, and fellow player, fellow back rower. Gone into battle many times with him. Steve played 134 games for Bath, 12 caps for England, Steve, and he's a father, a businessman, a husband, and all-round good guy. And it's lovely to have you here today, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Steve, a bit of a trip down sort of memory lane. We're sat here at Farley in the beautiful training pitch. It's a little bit different to what we were used to down at Lambridge. So, I mean, take us back. I mean, actually, I was looking at this. 1989, you joined Bath, which is over 30 years ago, if my maths is right. Tell us about your sort of joining, the story behind you joining Bath and what you were expecting, and because I was already there at the time, and you came in, and but it'd be interesting to get your perspective on it. Because
the first thing is, my first memory of Bath was of you, actually, on the physio couch. That's my first memory, first abiding memory. And
didn't you call me half man,
half man, half bed? Oh dear.
Yeah.
And then something else, something else happened, and since then, I've never ever done it again. I remember, I played England schools, and those days. You remember those purple tracksuits?
I remember them well.
Oh my gosh!
I think. Actually, my daughters were digging around in my loft the other day, and they pulled this purple tracksuit, and they went, "Dad, what's this?" And I said, "That's something to behold. That is one of the most famous tracksuits that's
absolutely retro. Yeah. They were fantastic.
Horrendous.
but at the time, it was my pride and joy. So of course, so I wore it. Believe it or not, I wore it to my first training session.
Yeah.
And Tricky being Tricky pulled me aside. He said, "Come here, son." So he said, "Have a look around." He was there. So, look, he pointed that international. What was it? International. Of course, we had like 10, 12 internationals there. So, son, there are 10, 12 internationals here. Don't do that again. Don't wear this tracksuit here. And he taught me a lesson. Ever since then, I put it away, and I never ever wore anything England, anything like that.
I know. I mean, at the time, the England sort of thing didn't really go down. I think the saying was
good enough for Bath, or good enough for England, not good enough for Bath.
Bath, exactly.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
That was definitely part of our mindset at the time.
Yeah.
But those tracksuits, I can remember going to England sessions with those tracksuits on, and having to go down at number 8 and between 2 second rows, and this was shiny sort of polyester, and you'd come off, and all your cheeks would just be completely taken away by the rubbing from these tracksuits. Not great things. But I mean, you talk about the first time that you met me. The first time I met you was actually on the training pitch, and I think I'd clawed myself off the physio bench and managed to get onto a training session. In fact, I'm a better trainer now than I was probably back in those days. But and I can remember a line out, and I was sort of you were in the sort of the second team line out, and I was in the first team line out, and I think a ball went over Nigel Redmond's head, as it invariably did.
It's Dawsey's fault.
Yeah, there's another story there. But and I caught the ball, and I remember just getting. I was quite famous for my sort of whip tackles and turning people in the tackle. I can remember just this young 18-year-old just whipping me around, turning me on the wrong side, and there was this sort of, Hawley's got tackled, and remember it very, very well. And it was it was quite a moment. And but thankfully, you know, we had some great games
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
didn't we?
Definitely.
But what was it like, you know, coming into that sort of, that Lion's Den, Dragon's Den of you know, all those players that, you know, we
Oh.
had at the time, and
It was brutal. It was
Yeah.
brutal, you know. I just remembered, you know, if I remember a training session where something went wrong, and Damien Cronin just lost it and just said, "Jack, he's shit. Get rid of him," you know, like that. And of course, you know, being at school, top end at school, and so I've never been, you know, you've been told by everybody you're this and that, and you arrive at the, you know, senior club and people telling you, you know, that you're not very good, you know, and things like that. It was, you know, it was very brutal. You know,
Yeah, it was.
You had to knuckle down.
Yeah.
You know, and those days, you know, we tested ourselves playing Welsh clubs, you know, and that was, you know, that in itself was an education. But I think the sessions I remember was, you know, obviously playing for the twos, playing against the first team. The brutal sessions we would have before the team was announced. You know, the training sessions were something to behold. You know.
Yeah, I can remember, you know, training at Lambridge, and we had you know, everyone wanted to get into the first team. So the competition at things like scrum time, where we used to do these live scrums, was just unbelievable. And I can remember a session that was right next to the riverbank, and actually the second team was actually trying to push the first team into the river, and it was absolutely brutal. You know, it was a harsh environment, but it was an honest environment.
Yeah,
And
it was, yeah.
and it was a very, so, you know, I often get asked, you know, what made that team, you know, that team for that long period such a great team. And my thing was all around trust, that we absolutely trusted one another 100%, from not just, you know, I trust him because he's a good bloke, but also in how we applied ourselves, you know, with the, you know, with our skills and what we did on the pitch. So our application of our skills and how much we practiced those skills, we knew we could rely on people, and we absolutely trusted them 100%.
Yeah,
Would you?
Yeah,
what would be your sort of take
well,
out
I
on
mean,
that?
the thing was, it was like a well-oiled machine for me, and I knew what I brought to the table to that machine. You know, I wasn't asked to throw these 20, 30-meter passes or anything like that. My job was to go forward with the ball, without the ball, offensive defense. So that was my job. You know, if we didn't have the ball, go forward and make the big hits.
Yeah.
With the ball, carry, make those hard yards.
Yeah.
You know, leave the rest to the other guys, the Barneses of this world, the Catties and so on. They did, you know, they knew they were good at Swifty, cutting the lines and stuff. So it was a well-oiled machine. So
yeah, it was great times. And what was your sort of? I'd be interested to hear your sort of take on. You know, I get asked this a lot. Also, you know, at the time was Jack Rowell, and his sort of leadership and how that worked for you or didn't work for you.
It's interesting because, I mean, the thing is, of course, I was a youngster growing up. I could hear his voice. You can have 10,000 people there. I could just hear his voice.
Rather annoying voice at times, isn't it?
But to be fair, it worked. I remember once during the game, I heard this voice go, "Ojo, do something, or if you don't do anything, get off. Do something or get off." And I just, you know, because I was obviously clearly just drifting during the game.
Yeah.
And I heard this, "Ojo, do something or get off." And that woke me up. I was like, oh, okay, you know. But, I mean, the thing is, within the team, you had strong character. You know, when you have the team yourself, you know, Barnesy, Hilly, the senior players, you know, the team ran itself. You know, does that make sense? You know,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It ran itself.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. You know, it was a really well-oiled machine, as the best teams, you know, of the older era and the new era are. And you know, the ones that do well are just, you know, you know how things happen, you know how things work, you know that and you know how to win.
Yeah.
And I call it sort of like it's almost like a plateauing effect, because as well as my own game, but also the team's game, you would start reaching these standards where you get to a plateau and you start thinking, hey, I know how to win this game, we know how to win this game as a team, and then you then step up to another level and you plateau again, and you keep these sort of steps going through this sort of cycle, and before you know it, you're at the top and you're the best team, and that's how it sort of felt to me. And it'd be interesting to see how whether that sort of that way of working still sits in the professional.
Totally. But even some of the changes and stuff, it came from the players, the senior players. I just remember once where it felt as if people were catching up and we needed to sort of move the training to 3 days.
Yeah.
And that came from the players.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting times, and just finally on a bit about your sort of career, because you spanned the amateur era and the professional era. You went on to Gloucester, and how did you find that step in from the sort of what was an amateur era to amateur with a very small A, or a professional with a very small P, to a full-blown professional? It was a bit Wild West there then as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, in certain extent, I mean, I think I played a couple of years at Bath as a professional.
Yeah.
So, at Bath we'd already advanced, and by the time I moved to Gloucester, they were just starting at the bottom, starting the professional side of things. So, but for me, from a rugby point of view, it's it's what I needed at that time, because I was part of a machine at Bath, whereas when I went to Gloucester, I was expected to, it was more than just that, the leadership side of things, and I had to do more.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's
and it brought out the best in me.
Yeah. I think getting out of that environment sometimes and making those changes that you need to do, and to freshen up and to do things. I went through it with my captaincy, and then and as when I went to coaching, and I went over to Ireland and I coached for a couple of years, and I really enjoyed it.
I forgot that. Yeah,
massive change, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Taking something that I had to another place, another part of the world. So I worked with the Munster team, and I worked with a club side called Gary Owen, and I absolutely loved it over there.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could talk all day about our past, but let's zoom forward now, because you've got a fantastic, absolutely lovely wife, 2 lovely children. Well, hardly call them children; they're like as tall as us. But and you've got a great sporting family. So tell us a little bit about Ava first, because Max is getting all the headlines at the moment. But tell us a little bit about Ava, because she's quite an athlete, isn't she?
She is an athlete. Yeah, she really is. I mean, she's 13, but when she looks like she's 17, 18, grown up, Amazon girl. But she's a bit of a she's a cricketer and a netball player. You know? She's in the she plays county cricket. Yeah. She plays up a year at cricket.
Is that Somerset?
Yeah, Somerset. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, a fast bowler. It's very good there. And netball, she's in the she's in Team Bath, but also in the regional side as well. Yeah. So all that's coming on, but at some point she'll have to choose.
She'll have to make the choice.
Make the choice. That's
netball
right.
And cricket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But speaking to Lisa and stuff, and I agree. I think I'd rather do a winter tour in the Caribbean or something.
I'm with you, man. Definitely.
Then go.
Will that be a sort of bit of parental guidance that comes in about do you want to be playing at Milton Keynes, or do you want to be going to Barbados on a world tour?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you there. You know my feelings about Barbados.
Exactly.
So obviously Max played last week. Very narrow loss to Sale, and But looking forward to this week's game. How do you sort of manage that relationship with Max in terms of his development and being a father, but also being a critique or being a supporter, and how does that work?
I mean, the first thing is it's taken, I would say, 3 years. I'm just about over things now, because for years and years, when he was born, I thought, here's my forward. He's going to be a Bath forward. Says, it's taken me a while. It's taken me 3 years. I'm now over the fact that he's actually a three-quarter. Unbelievable.
But you were a frustrated three-quarter, weren't
you? No, I just hang out on the backs because I was knackered. That's what it was. Oh dear. But totally, apart from name, we're different players. Different, the way he sees the game, from a totally different lens, and skill-wise, he's got much more skill.
He can pass the ball. Yeah,
he sees space.
What's his tackling like? Is he the mailman?
Well, that's just it. That hasn't quite developed yet, but I'm hoping it does.
Yeah.
But whereas I'll run into a wall, he see the wall, he'll run around it.
Yeah. He's obviously got Lisa's ideas on those things.
But it's great. I try and give him advice. Whether he tends to listen. And when he was younger and stuff, he always used to wait for me to get feedback. And if he's had a poor game, we'll drive him back from a game. I'm quiet, and his mum's giving him this, that, feeding him all the niceties and stuff. And afterwards, okay, Dad, let's have it. What do you think? And sometimes he knows I tell it as it is. Sometimes I'll just explode. So, you didn't do this, didn't do that, but all that has gone now. They're more constructive now.
And is he okay with that?
Yeah, of course he's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. But what the thing is, it's important that he analyzes his own game.
Yeah.
And you've got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that whole thing. My daughter's hockey and netball players, and I'm, and I get exactly the same thing. I get the, give me some feedback, and and it's really difficult to sort of balance that.
Yeah.
As a parent, what that feedback, how you deliver that feedback, and if it was you don't want to be as harsh as the environment that we were in. A Jack Ralph feedback, or so. But you do want it to be meaningful. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
But Max is obviously got drafted into the England squad. How was that in the Ojomoh household? How was that? And tell me how Max received it.
Well, he called. I mean, he called me, and we talked about it. I know it sounds crazy, but when he looked at it, the Lions away and things, he thought it would have a chance. But he needed to play games, and when he wasn't selected for some of those games, he thought that was it, gone. And I think he then played against Quins and stuff. But he got selected. Yeah. But the thing was, he knew nothing about it. Because it'd gone into his email junk box and stuff. So we thought that,
this is a true story.
It's a true story. The email from selection got into junk box. So it was only when he turned up at Farley for training and stuff, and the Hoops called him in, and told him.
That's a great story.
Yeah, told him he'd been selected.
That's such a good
story. And he called me. He says, "Dad, I said, what? What was that? So he said he'd been, selected to England, and he was screaming down the phone. I was like, wow, chuffed to bits for him. But what it felt as if it was like on the X Factor, because the thing was, he was there for a week.
Yeah.
And then each week, because the semi-finals, so each week a new group, because they had Bristol, Sale. So he was selected for the original squad, but without the 4 semi-finalists.
Yeah.
So each week when the teams got knocked out, some of the players Eddie, would select from that team would go in. So it may well be that was 1 week and 1 week only. So it was like as if it was, playing for his supper, singing every week for supper.
Brilliant.
So but he managed to stay the whole 5 weeks and stuff. And I thought in this sport, confidence, isn't it? It's done this confidence a world of good. And you train all the best players in the country.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't get capped in the end, but those 5 weeks there were invaluable for his confidence.
He's put his marker down, and
That's right.
and the other thing is that you suddenly you know what it's like when you go turning up at in the Bath environment for the first time. I went through it, you went through it, and then you turn up in an England environment, and you go, wow, these players, you look at them and you played with them. You've watched them on TV, and you think, I'll never play with that. But suddenly you're in that environment.
That's right.
And then you're on the field, and you're
Yeah.
tackling them, and you're getting stuck in, and you're doing things, and suddenly you find out you can beat them at the odd thing.
That's right, yeah.
And you suddenly think, well, these guys aren't. And then your confidence just goes through the roof.
That's right, yeah.
And I definitely, I was so interested, and excited when Max got some runs at the end of the season last year. It was great to see, and he took his chance very well.
Absolutely. And what I'm loving about it is like I see him there. I remember Max at a county game under 14s. We're going to the Rector. They were playing against Dorset or something, and it was a county match. But the game before was in the 15s, and in that game was Miles Reed. So I've seen these guys now, a few years on, playing in the first team. Miles there, and the G's boy as well.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
we're definitely knocking on a bit.
I
now.
know. Gosh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, listen, that's great to chat to you, Steve.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. You've had some challenges recently, and it's great to see you
Thank
back
you.
on your feet. And it's great to play golf with you recently. You kicked my ass. Next time you won't. Not that we're competitive at all, but it's really great to see you.
Yeah,
And
wonderful.
and you're going to join me in the President's Lounge on Saturday.
Absolutely, looking forward to
and
it.
we'll have a quiet beer and reminisce a little bit more,
Yeah.
and look forward to a great game.
Definitely.
Cheers,
Looking
Steve.
forward to it. Cheers, bud.
Good to see you.
Anyway.